All right, we on? All right, good evening, everybody. Time being 6:34, give or take a few seconds. This is the Master Plan Committee first official initial meeting. This is our introductory meeting. Just to kind of give you some first information before I jump into the agenda. The meeting will be held at the Municipal Building in the Town Council Chambers here at 355 East Central Street here today at 6:30. Note to residents, all citizens are welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person, and the meetings will also be live streamed on Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 29. Recordings of the meeting are available on Franklin TV, Franklin Town All TV YouTube channel. Additionally, in an effort to maximize citizens' engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone or Zoom. There is a link to access the meeting on June 14, 2023 EDC open meeting. Click on the link, open Zoom, copy or paste the URL into your browser, and that should take you right to the meeting. There's a call-in phone number. That number is 1-929-205-6099, and enter the meeting ID 84277006388, and then press the pound symbol. I know you guys call them hashtags, but back in my old days we call them pound symbols. So one more time, the call-in phone number is 1-929-205-6099. Enter the meeting ID 84277006388, and then press the pound symbol. So the first thing on our agenda for tonight for the Master Plan Update Committee is to have a little bit of a swearing-in ceremony, our first official meeting. I figured the best thing to do is have somewhat of a ceremonial swearing-in ceremony by inviting our wonderful town clerk up here today, Nancy, to swear us all in.
I'm going to ask you all to stand, please. And I want to thank you all for your service to the town. And I do know a lot of you, but for those of you that I don't, please stop in and say hi. Be nice. And ask you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially perform the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Master Plan Committee, so help you God?
I do.
Yes. Congratulations, all of you. I'll be watching on TV.
So on Zoom tonight, unfortunately, Megan Hagan couldn't make it in person. She is currently on Zoom. Hi, Megan. Thanks for joining us. As I mentioned to you earlier when we spoke on the phone, at some point during this week, you can always stop into the town clerk's office and she can swear you in officially onto the Master Plan Committee. But welcome to all the new members. I want to personally thank everybody and thank you for joining the. I know taking a lot of time out of your schedule is probably seems like a daunting thing to do for some of us. It's quite a familiar thing. Putting our time aside to help out on many of the committees, but this is probably one of the larger committees that the town of Franklin has, and we're going to have it's going to take approximately, according to the master plan is going to take anywhere between 18 to 20 months to do. And to start off tonight, what I'd ultimately first like to do is do some introductions, and I want to introduce first my vice chair, Kobe Frangillo, who, if you won't mind introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your role here and what your background is.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Kobe Frangillo. I am on the Franklin Town Council. Been there for 2 years now, and I'm excited to be the vice chair of this committee. I think that I've lived here my whole life. My dad grew up here. I love this town. I think it's a great community, and but we're facing some challenges over the next 10 years and beyond that I think is really important for us to really plan ahead and be proactive in ensuring that we sustain the great community that we have.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie Hamlin. I am the clerk of the Master Plan Committee. I will be timing you, I think, and making sure that the chair stays under time.
And kicking me in the shins for whenever
But,
I get out of control. As she does.
I didn't grow up in Franklin. I actually chose to live here. I moved here. I've been on the EDC, the chair of the EDC, the chair of the Franklin for All Steering Committee. I just think that to be able to produce a vision of the future, where we want to be in 10 years, I think is part of all of the things we've been doing on the council and with other groups and boards. And I think I'm just really excited to be here. And thank you, whoever chose me to be on it. Probably Tom or Glenn, I don't know. But thank you all.
It was probably Tom. Jennifer Williams of the Planning Board.
Sure. Hi, my name's Jennifer Williams. I've been a member of the planning board since fall of 2021. Time flies. I'm really excited about this. I, like Melanie, chose to move to Franklin, particularly to start a family here. I have 3 young children. I live very close to downtown. We use every playground and open space the town has to offer, and in addition to the rest of the resources that we value so much. Professionally, I am a registered architect, and I also do quite a bit with planning, but from institutional master planning, athletics and recreation master planning for institutions specifically. And so I'm really excited to embark on this journey to bring sort of that lens to the table, the planning board perspective, and then also some of my professional background as well. So thank you for having me.
Welcome. Good to have you. Rick Power, also of the Planning Board.
Hi, I'm Rick Power, on the planning board as well, I think for 5 or 6 years now. I too am a transplant of Franklin. I grew up in Norwood mostly, but moved here in 2006. I raised my 3 kids here. They're all 21 and up now, so no one in the school system anymore, but we had a good experience at Tri-County and at Franklin High. And I think Franklin's one of the greatest towns around to live and raise a family, and looking forward to help keeping it that way. So, thank you.
Nice. Bruce Hunchard of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yeah, my name is Bruce Hunchard. Well, you've seen how Kobe said it, I'll say it too. I'm a lifelong resident of Franklin, my wife and I both. We had 3 children that grew up in town here. A couple of them moved away. One lives in Bellingham. I was an elected member of the Franklin Board of Health for probably 25 years, served as chairman for a long time. I've been on the Zoning Board of Appeals close to 30 years now, serving as chairman. And was on the steering committee for the EDC in rezoning the downtown, or trying to straighten out the zoning downtown. That's enough.
Wow, that's awesome. Megan of the Conservation Commission.
Hi everyone, thanks for allowing me to join via Zoom tonight, as I am also parent to 2 small children, one of which has conjunctivitis at the moment, so we are home. I am on the Conservation Commission and have been so for about 9 months now, and we've just wrapped up our draft of our open space plan, open space and recreation plan, and gone through the whole process for that. So I'm really looking forward to bringing my knowledge from open space to see what we can do to help the town out going forward.
Perfect. Welcome, Megan. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, we have also 6 members at large that I'd like to introduce. These are volunteers who have put in applications to join this committee through the public. There were approximately 13 applications for these positions. We chose 6 very top-notch individuals. I'd like to start with Kenneth Nell of Elmore of Dean College. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a 11-month resident of Franklin, and I guess I chose to be here as well. I'm excited about this, both as a resident. I really enjoyed the last 11 months. I understand I can never be a townie, but I'm here, and I really have enjoyed the experience. I also, of course, will bring the experience at Dean College as I serve as the president over at Dean College, and it's about trying to make sure this is a incredible experience, certainly for the people who come here, but to be an attractive experience for the people who live, work here, and I hope that more of our students see that Franklin is a great environment for them to be in too.
Welcome. Good to have you. Erin Gallagher.
Hi, my name's Erin Gallagher. I like several people here, kind of happened upon Franklin about 5 years ago now, when my husband and I were looking to move out of Boston with a toddler and an infant. So we have 3 young children, 2 of which are now in the Keller schools. And we're, as a result, invested in, continuing to build Franklin as a place where they're going to grow up and, are invested in the future of it in that way. My background is in marketing and communications, and I also help to run a parents organization in the area.
Nice, welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome to the Master Plan Committee. Joseph Halligan. Joe
Yeah,
Halligan.
Joe Halligan, lifelong resident of Franklin. Also served close to 15 years on the planning board till I was kindly replaced by Jen Williams. And enjoy the town. My son did his 12 years of school through town and was one of the first students to go into the new high school, which was very appreciative of the town, which gave him an education to go to Brown University, where he just graduated 2 weeks ago with his master's. So I'm really proud of the Franklin school system. It really gave him the edge to get where he is. Got a few things going on in town, and I hope I can add to the town and the community and make it as good for other families that it was as good for me.
Awesome, great to have you on board, Joe. Really am. Janelle Lang?
Hi, Janelle Lang. Fell in love with this area in the early 2000s, and we landed in an old farmhouse across the border in Bellingham, but then made the move to Franklin 8 years ago. We have 2 kids in Oak Street and Horace Mann, and I've always loved Franklin and just thought about there's so much potential, and there's so many good things about it that we can reinforce and plan and grow in smart ways. And so I've been looking for an opportunity to bring my professional background to help towards that. Professionally, I am a registered architect, and I'm the director of campus planning at Brandeis University.
Nice. Welcome to the Master Plan Committee. Good to have you. Eric Stelzer, am I say that correctly?
Yes, you are. Yeah, Stelzer. Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. My name's Eric Stelzer. I haven't been here all that long in town. Been 9 months, I think, is the total that I'm at now. So relatively new here in town. It's been such a great, welcoming, and inviting community here since I've been here. We have 2 kids ourselves. One in Jefferson, one about to go to Jefferson, and really enjoy the activities that are going on there. We love the open spaces that are here in town, and participating in all the sports activities that are going on. Professionally, I'm an energy and environmental consultant, advising on offshore wind development, and certainly look forward to setting up the master plan here and setting such a foundational piece to a community and what its visioning for the future is going to be. So look forward to working with you all on that.
That's awesome. I think, Eric, between yourself and Ken, with being fairly new residents, you're going to be able to kind of give us an insight from something that we have. Look, we've been looking at the same picture for so long. It's nice to get some kind of outside, or not so much outside output, but some fairly new perspectives on things. So it's good to have you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And Gino Carlucci. Welcome, sir.
Hi, I'm Gino Carlucci. I'm kind of a hybrid. I don't fit into any of these other categories, since I did grow up in Franklin, but then I left for several years. But I couldn't stay away. I had to come back. And I brought with me my wife, who is also very heavily involved in town issues. Our 2 kids did grow up and went through the Franklin schools. They're grown and they live in Boston now. I'm an urban planner professionally, and I've been planning in mainly surrounding towns for the last 35 years. And as of last Thursday, I retired as the town planner in Sherburne.
Wow. Welcome, Gino. Good to have you on the Master Plan Committee. At this time, I'd also like to introduce the Planning Department members. I have Brian Taberner. Go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Taberner, Director of Planning Community Development. We're going to be assisting you in any way we can. I'm a certified planner. I've been in the town for, I don't know, over 15 years. I can't keep track exactly, but about 30 years of planning experience, and we, in-house, we developed the last master plan. We did not use consultants. We didn't have quite as big a, well, it was a little bit smaller, I think, a committee. But we, I think we're going to have, this is a great group. We're going to have a good time putting together some great goals and objectives for the town going forward. So we look forward to working with you.
Welcome, Brian. Amy Love, Town Planner.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the town planner. I've been here probably just over 8 years as the town planner. When I first started here, I actually worked on the open space plan, and then more recently we did the housing production plan. I'm not originally from Franklin. I am from the area. I grew up in Medfield. Moved to Franklin about 12 years ago. Raised my 3 kids, still one left in the high school, through Franklin Public School Systems, and they were involved in a lot of activities through the school systems, and they really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome. Welcome to the team. And also part of our team, I think best introductions for this is, these will be our consultants for the master plan. Beta Consulting and Barrett, is it Barrett Consulting as well? Okay. So I have Jeff Maxitudis, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of Beta Consulting, if you'd like to introduce yourself, sir.
Yep, good evening. Thanks for having us, everybody.
Good to have you.
Jeff Maxitudis, I'm a transportation planner with over 30 years experience. The Beta office is located nearby in Norwood. I'm not a Franklin resident, although I do know the town fairly well, working on some projects with the town. I did the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan with the Public Works just maybe a year and a half ago. We also do a lot of design projects in town, Grove Street, Washington Street, signal design, shared use path on Washington Street. So I'm familiar with a lot of the roadways and networks in town. So Beta is the overall manager of this project. So I'll be managing really administration, contract. Jill will be managing the day-to-day operations of the project, and she'll speak in a second. But I've worked on several master plans, mostly in Massachusetts. Barrett and Beta team together often. Jill and I are working on a few other projects, master plan projects in Massachusetts right now. So we know each other, we work well together, and we're happy to be here. We had a nice tour today. Amy took us around for maybe 2.5 hours, which was great. We enjoyed the center. We were impressed with the open space, recreation, conservation areas throughout town. So that was very impressive. Saw the industrial commercial areas. So yeah, it was a great start, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Perfect.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jill Slankus. I'm with Barrett Planning Group. We're located in Hingham, Massachusetts. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, lived on the South Shore of Massachusetts for the past 14 years. I think today may have been my first time in Franklin, and I could say I could see myself living here. I could definitely see myself.
That was my next question.
I could see myself bringing my husband and 3 children here. I also like the downtown, the gelato, the bookstore, are off the top of my head things I'm remembering. I love open space. The one pond we were to, we could do fishing and hiking. We were very intrigued and impressed by the sign outside the senior center that said about the Olympics.
Senior Olympics started today.
The town common is gorgeous, the schools, the recreation facilities, and also just the positive attitude of everybody who we've interacted with so far today is really, really neat. I might need to drink the water here before I go home. Like Jeff said, I will be kind of the point of contact for the project, managing the project, and keeping, obviously, Jeff and folks at Beta in the loop and everybody here. So we'll figure out how the liaison system and what works best for us for this project. And we'll be working on about at least 5 of the elements of the master plan. And Beta will be working on the other 3, I think 2 or 3.
Yep.
So that's kind of how the breakdown is, and we can get more into that later. Yep. But thank you for having us. We're really excited to be working with the town of Franklin on the master plan.
Well, it's great to have you. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the Master Plan Committee. And I'll round it all off by saying my name's Glenn Jones. I'm a long-term sitting town councilor. I'm currently the clerk of the Franklin Town Council. occasionally I get, this is the lady that next to me, she has to kick me in the knee because I like to talk too much. So I can assure you that as part of this committee, my job is not to sit here and do a lot of talking as it is so much as to get as much input from the public as we possibly can into creating the next master plan for the community. My background, I am a master electrician. I actually teach in a school of approximately 1,700 apprentices up in Boston in an institution known as the JHC of Greater Boston. We are a training facility for the local 103 International Brotherhood of Electricians. I have been part of my local union for almost 23 years. I've been happily married to my wife for 25 years yesterday. We have 5 kids. We live over on School Street. All of my children have gone through the Franklin Public School systems, and very, very proud parent. 2 graduating students from college. I was just joking earlier that one of my major issues have gone from being children having conjunctivitis to children complaining to me that they don't like being adults. So I've kind of run the gamut on things. My son actually just got accepted to Dean College. I'm looking forward to him going there. And there are a variety of different things I've been involved in. I was the former chairman of economic development. I've been on a variety of different boards, including my lord, I had mental mistake for a second there. But my mainstay here in the town council has been to focus on the growth and the economic development of the town of Franklin. And I think what this master plan will help us do is to build a substantial guide that will help bring us through the next 10 years and continue to make the town of Franklin one of the best places to live and raise a family. By way of statistics, the town of Franklin has actually been named at least 4 times the best place to live and raise a family. So we've convinced her to come into town. Perhaps we can convince you to come into town and make this one big happy family. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Master Plan Committee. Thank you for introducing yourselves. It's great to have you here. I just want to go over some basic policies. So one of the major points of tonight is to really just kind of cover some basic rules, policies, procedures, talk a little bit about how we're going to move forward from here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Robert's Rules of Order. For the most part, we don't really have to delve too deeply into Robert's Rules. I did include a copy of a summary of Robert's Rules of Order in the packet that I had with your agenda. I want to talk a little bit about the state open meeting law in that one form I talked about earlier, as well as talk about where we get our charge from, and that's from the state. So let's talk about a little bit about in-house communications. Through the series of emails that I've sent out to everybody, I have made a note that all communications in regards to the master plan is going to go through the town email system. So if you have any questions, if you have any information that you need, if there is any kind of data that is passing between members of the board, that information needs to stay within the town coffers and basically all done through the town email. The reason for that, simply put, is because in order to keep any communications, any information, and any kind of data that gets generated, we want to keep that in-house, because anything that goes through personal email has to be included as part of our meeting minutes and as part of our notes, because anything and everything that's related to the master plan is considered a public document. So to mitigate having any problems with that, we're going to keep all communications within the town email. Has anybody had any issues with their email and accessing their email? No? Perfect. Everything goes through Gmail. Amy, would you like to give some background into the town's Gmail accounts, as well as the Google Drives, as well as data and storage?
Sure. Well, kind of as Glenn just mentioned, that everyone has a Gmail account through Town of Franklin, so that will be the main account that everybody will be using. Communications will probably be include us, include chairman, when people are communicating, and Glenn can get more into that. We do have a Google shared drive that I will be sending out tomorrow to all the committee members. everything in this drive is where your documents will be stored. And there's several folders. There's an agenda folder. When we get into the elements, there's a folder for each element in subcommittee. So that drive will be shared amongst this committee. Brian and I will be on it. Our consultants will be on it. And that's where all the information will be stored. We do have a website, just like a planning board website, conservation, ZBA. So there is one under boards and committees. It's the master plan update committee. So agendas will be posted there, meeting minutes, any new information. I know that I was not there, but we were at the Strawberry Stroll over the weekend with this handout, so that's actually now posted on the master plan website. So check that frequently. If anybody has any ideas to add to it, please share it with your chairman and Brian and I, and we can always work at getting that updated. But that's definitely one of my goals. So look for my email tomorrow. I'll be sending out access to the shared drive, the Google Drive.
Perfect. Thank you. Robert's Rules of Order, for the most part, I've included the basic rules here. A basic rule of thumb when it comes to Robert's Rules of Order, and when I first joined the Franklin Town Council, I got handed a book about this thick, and all joking aside, from the former chairman, and it was Robert's Rules for Dummies, which I didn't find funny, but nonetheless, it was a pretty thick book on what all those rules were. I have no intentions of following the letter of the law too deeply when it comes to those rules, but there are some basic rules of order. Like, for instance, anything that requires a question, either to one of the members from the planning department or from Bader and Barrett, where we have a question that needs to be directed, where we need to retrieve information, all questions just need to go through the chair, directed to the individual that wants to speak. Also, as part of the policy tonight, and this is one of the things that I'd generally like to get some consensus on, which is why I don't necessarily have this in any one of our rules listed for tonight, is a general amount of time spent with discussion. Now, my clerk and I had some discussion on how long our general discussion should go for. But I'd like to get some input from the Master Plan Committee on how long you think a general discussion should take. Like, for instance, there's going to be a multitude of questions that pop up on any one of the particular types of documents, whether it's land use, natural resources, open space circulation, etc. There's going to be a brevity of questions that come up. So just to respect everyone's time, and just to respect the planning department's and Bader and Barrett's time as well as our own time, we want to try to limit discussion to a certain amount of time. So I'd like to get kind of a general consensus from everybody on how much time should be spent. The discussion I had with Mel was about 3 minutes, and Mel would be doing the time. Do you think that would be a fair amount of time?
Per person.
Kobe?
Yeah, I was defining that as 3 minutes per person.
Yes, per person.
And I guess this comes up a few times where something, you use your time and then something gets said that you want to respond to. I mean, I think having a second minute that could be used at a later time in the discussion, or even two of them, would be a helpful piece. I like the idea of be prepared with your thoughts coming in. Don't ramble. Be efficient with your words. But it's Franklin has a tendency to avoid public discussion, and I think part of that is an obsession with you only get to say your first piece and then never talk again. And so I think allowing for that second, I would say at least 2 more minutes of sort of response and dialogue would be my preference.
So to frame that, you're basically saying 1 round of discussion and then a second round of discussion for those who may want to say something?
If
in
you have
response?
something else to.
Okay. So first round discussion, second round response, or additional response. Okay. With all fairness of time, 3 minutes for first round?
Yeah, I think that's
minute for second round?
appropriate.
Does that Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I think, this is a dialogue that we're going to be having,
Correct.
and I think as we're communicating across the group, so oftentimes a thought will come through off of someone else's response. So allowing a smaller amount of time in order to respond afterwards I would support that.
Okay. Anyone else got some thoughts?
Can we relinquish our time to another speaker if we want?
No.
I think not, only because that could actually add to the length of
Wait,
the discussion when there
speaker
might be
who
multiple
relinquishes
topics.
is gonna lose his 3 minutes.
I'm sorry?
The speaker that, well, not the speaker, but the member that relinquishes his 3 minutes to the speaker he's not gonna be able to talk, period. So how is it gonna add any time to him?
No, fair enough. Does anyone agree or disagree with that?
It's pretty rare, but I don't hate it.
I know you wouldn't hate it, Colby, that's why I brought it up.
It feels a little bit like if that were the case, then at the end of the night, there might be some instances where certain topics end up maybe unfairly having, a
More
lot
time
more
than
time
less.
by just one person, where that might not necessarily be the equal amount of time spent on each particular discussion point or topic. So I would err on the side of, let's get those 3 minutes back if somebody wants to relinquish their time versus giving it to somebody else.
Okay. So not allowing people to give up their time then?
You can give up your time, but it doesn't necessarily go to someone else.
Okay.
Like that 3 minutes just goes,
It's unused.
you get done 3 minutes earlier.
Okay. Fair enough.
The goal is to be more efficient than Congress with
Right.
the discussion.
Yes, because I think everyone would pretty much agree with so many different topics to be discussed. Now, I do have to make one clarifying thing in regards to this particular board. For the most part, when I get on to the further part of the agenda, this board is ultimately going to be divvied up into 5 subcommittees, where much of that discussion is ultimately going to be held. So when we have large meetings like this, they're going to be general topics geared mostly towards the structure of the master plan and ultimately the piecing together of the different materials and content that comes out of the subcommittees. So we're not, for the most part, going to have an in-depth amount of discussion in regards to any one particular topic here. A lot of that discussion is going to be done at the subcommittee level. So for the most part, with the fairness of 3 minutes for any discussion and then another minute for a response later, that's approximately 4 minutes per person for any one specific. Now you have to also understand that that's for any one specific topic. So all in all, it could add up pretty quickly if we get into any kind of depth on any specific questions, which is why ultimately the goal is to try to keep as many content-specific questions at the subcommittee level, and that this is just going to be the overall master plan committee overarching the structure of the master plan and a little less on the content. Fair enough to say, Brian, in that sense?
There will definitely be a substantial amount of communications going on at the subcommittees, and this group, I hope, is going to, once you get into it, you're going to be coming back and having your either bi-weekly or monthly meetings and things, and that's when you're going to be essentially reporting out of your subcommittees on the progress and on certain issues and things of that nature. So, yeah, I think what you're proposing should work, and if you decide it's not, you can always amend later on.
Yep.
Right?
All right. So
Can I ask for
Sure.
clarify that?
Yes.
So the one round of 3, the second round of 1 is for the full committee?
Yes.
And then the subcommittees get broken up and we can decide how we want to do
Yes.
the subcommittees?
Correct.
Just want to make sure that
so-
it's just,
so
we're talking about just the big
as
group.
part of this body,
Yes,
as part of this body,
Okay.
for any one major discussion item,
yeah,
it'll be 3 minutes per member.
Yep.
With, once their 3 minutes is up and it's gone through the membership, a member can request to have a response to that.
absolutely. I like that.
They can request to have a response to that. They don't necessarily have to have a response to
Right.
that, but they're at least allowed a response to that.
Yep.
Fair enough? Is
Sounds good.
everyone pretty much in agree? All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. So now we've at least set up some time guidelines in regards to these meetings. So just for clarification, on any one major topic, we're going to have 3 minutes per member. And then after we've gone through the membership, for those who want to speak, there will be 1 minute response from any member who chooses to speak in response to another member or for other information. All right, perfect. That clears that up. See, I knew we could get that sorted out.
Of course,
Well,
we can do hard things.
I'm telling you. I love it when a plan comes together. Sorry, I sound like Hannibal. So, next thing on the item is open meeting law. I did want to talk a little bit about this, just in a little bit of brevity, just to kind of get everybody up to snuff as to what this is and what this means. I'm certainly not going to read, oh, I just lost my page. Sorry, folks. So I'm just going to read the overview. For the purposes of the open law, it is to ensure that transparency in deliberations on which public policy is based, because the democratic process depends on the public having knowledge about the considerations underlying governmental actions. The open meeting law requires, with some exceptions, that the meetings of public bodies to be open to the public. It also seeks to balance the public's interest in witnessing the deliberations of public officials with the government's need to manage its operations effectively. So the open meeting law was revised in 2009 in the Ethics Reform Bill and now centralizes those responsibilities within the statewide enforcement under the Attorney General. Anything and everything in regards to discussions with this body is considered to be part of a public meeting. So one of the things that we tend to stay away from is having an open deliberation on any specific topic within a social media context. The reason I bring that up is because this is an open meeting and because any topic that comes up as part of the master plan committee is considered to be public input, we are basically forbidden from having deliberations or any kind of discussions in regard to a specific content area in the master plan on a social media aspect, to the point where it could impact the open meeting law. So any and all discussions we have, we basically just need to keep them within the purview of our individual subcommittees or as the master plan committee as a whole. I will leave the rest of the document for everyone to read, and hopefully everyone has a pretty good understanding as to what the open meeting law requirements are. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Only that Mark Sorrell would be happy to come at your next meeting and give an overview of whatever you want to discuss on those areas.
Perfect. And also as part of Brian, our town attorney, coming in at the next meeting to discuss some basic rules, some basic policies, as well as guidelines for the subcommittees. Once we set up the subcommittees, the goal is to form the subcommittees in our next scheduled meeting, which will be June 28th, Wednesday night, same time. And when I get further down the agenda, I'll explain to you in some detail as to what those subcommittees are. And ultimately, next week, we'll set those committees up along with establishing the members of those subcommittees. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
Do we have any, excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, do we have any quorum issues? Like, in other words, planning board's got to have at least 3 or 4 members there, the ZBA's got to have at least 3. You know, I don't know what the council does. If the council can probably hold a meeting, I don't know what action they can do if they don't have a quorum. Nobody ever asked that, but I'm just curious.
Be tough not to get a quorum with this committee as a
Well,
whole.
if you got, how many members you got?
13.
13, so you need 7,
Seven.
right? You need at least 7 to have hold a meeting.
Mhm.
That's what I'm getting at.
So if we don't, then we would have to wait until we have a full quorum. I don't think we could continue unless we had at least if we had at least 8.
Well, that means that 6 people could get together and talk about things. It's not considered a meeting, it's not a quorum. Correct?
I'm going to have Mark Serrano take
Yes.
care of that.
I think those are questions best left for Mr. Sorrell next week when he comes to visit us.
Whatever.
Okay.
You're the chair.
No, that's fine. I'd rather have the lawyer do the lawyerese with us, just to be specific. Any other questions? Okay, so one quick thing I want to bring up is where exactly we are required to have a master plan. So I figured what I'd do is bring up the law and just kind of clue everybody in a little bit as to where we get our guidance from. And this comes from the state of Massachusetts. This is Commonwealth of Massachusetts General Laws, Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 41, Section 81D. This is the Master Plan Economic Development Supplement. According to Section 81D, a planning board established in any city or town under Section 81 shall make a master plan of such, where a city or town of such part or parts thereof, as said board may deem advisable, from time to time may extend or perfect such a plan. Such a plan shall be a statement through text, maps, illustrations, or other forms of communication that is designed to provide a basis of decision-making regarding the long-term physical development of that municipality. The comprehensive plan shall be internally consistent in its policies, forecasts, and standards, and shall include the following elements: goals and policies, land use plan, housing elements. Sorry, I gotta scroll down here. Economic development, natural and cultural resources, open space and recreation, services and facilities, circulation, and ultimately an implementation program. And there's a whole long list of other requirements that go along with this. So the last time that the town of Franklin updated its master plan was 2013. It was chaired by Jeff Roy, with town councilors Andy Basanti and Matt Kelly. Back in that day, I was actually here at the time. I think I was on one of the subcommittees back then. But just to kind of give you a little bit of insight, where all this gets established from, this was established in, this particular committee was established due to Resolution 2307 that states the Master Plan Update Committee, whereas the Town Council desires to update the 2013 Town-wide Master Plan, that now therefore the Franklin Town Council hereby establishes the Master Plan Update with 3 members, this is for the public's information, with 3 members of the Franklin Town Council, 2 members of the Franklin Planning Board, 1 member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 member of the Franklin Conservation Commission, 6 members at large, and the town administrator nominated those 13 members to the committee, which is what we are here for tonight. And one more last thing to read before I move on. What exactly is the master plan? A master plan is a strategic framework that guides the future physical and economic development for the town of Franklin. Based on the community's visions and goals, developing the master plan is more than just researching and writing a report. It's an open, public process through which the people of the community decide the future, priorities to guide growth and development over the next decade. It is a process through which town residents and business owners, town boards and committees talk to each other, listen to each other, and bring their visions for the town into alignment to achieve a set of shared goals. What does the master plan include? The plans for the Franklin's future growth and development, an inventory of present land use and proposed distribution, location and interrelationship of public and private lands, the identification of existing and forecasting housing needs and objectives, including programs for the preservation, improvement, and development of housing, policies and strategies for the expansion of stabilization for local economic base, analysis for existing and forecast needs for facilities and services used by the public, an inventory of existing and proposed circulations and transportation systems, the definition and scheduling of specific actions necessary to achieve the goals and objectives of each element of the master plan. The various elements of the master plan, as I just mentioned to you, are the goals and policies, natural cultural resources, land use, housing circulation, open space and recreation, economic development, community services and facilities, and that's about it for that one. This is actually, this document is currently posted online for anyone who wants to read it. You can visit the town's master plan website when it's online. Hopefully, is it back up, Steve? Yay! That's good to know. So with that being said, does anyone have any questions? I hate to keep you the one talking over here.
You love it. You love it.
I know I do. You're not wrong about that.
We didn't talk about timing you tonight, though.
You're right, we didn't. So, all right. Brian, would you like to give an overview of the 2013 master plan and a little bit of history behind that? Because I believe at the time you were one of the individuals that was a key element in making that the last master plan?
Sure. Last time around, the town did it in-house. We did about a year and a half's worth of work before we actually formed a committee. So the planning department actually put in an awful lot of time. Beth Whirling at the time was town planner, and myself. And we had other town staff providing input and GIS layers and all of those things. So we updated the all of the different existing conditions of 7 different elements that are listed out here, not including. We have so there would be land use, natural, cultural, and historic resources, open space, recreation, the circulation element, housing, economic development, and community services and facilities. So we did the existing conditions on that. Then we held a committee was established. As the chair has mentioned, the chair of the committee at that time was Jeff Roy. We had a good group of people, broke into, I think it was 4 subcommittees at the time. And they focused a lot on, because they had the existing conditions done, they were able to focus on the public process and gaining input from other organizations, and actually putting together some goals, general goals and a vision for the committee, and then taking each goal and providing a structure for the implementation of it, which meaning breaking it into objectives and specific actions to carry out. So in general, that's what you're all going to be doing again. Beta this time around will be doing most of the existing conditions updates at the same time you're meeting. So there'll be a little bit different process, but it's essentially the same thing. The one thing that was mentioned a minute ago is the planning board is the organization that's responsible for a master plan in town according to the state statute. The town has decided to do things a little bit different, and a lot of towns do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just keep in mind that the document, once you have a document that you're happy with, planning board needs to vote to approve it. After you've gone through the whole process, and after that, you would go to council for the town council to vote on the document. But we're talking a year and a half or 2 years off from now before that's actually going to happen. So I just wanted you to be aware that and it's similar to, with the Conservation Commission is responsible for an open space and recreation plan. And some towns, the Conservation Commission doesn't get involved that much. So it's just the way it is. So I think that a group, long as the group is representative of many entities, as this one is, I think you'll be in good shape. Do you have any questions about process or anything maybe I can help you with? But in general, it was what we're doing. I have a feeling you had something to say. Yeah, come on. What do you got over there?
You said 18 to 22 months before we get through the whole process here, that was saying. And I would assume that there'd be a recommendation for a new master plan, which may include some zoning changes and stuff like that. So now you're talking another year after that to get the zoning changed through the town council, possibly, maybe quicker, but let's just say a year. So we're talking 3 years out by the time anything that we do in the next 18 months would come to fruition.
Yeah. My thought is that the public process, by the time you get the existing conditions established, you do a public process and you get a draft document, I'm feeling you're going to do that within a year. I really don't believe it's going to take as long as it And it might be a little shorter than that. However, what you're saying about developing a goal or whatever the case may be on changes you want to see happen today, opposed to waiting 2-3 years, that's true. I mean, we actually, planning department has recommended a couple of small zoning changes because we don't want to wait recently. So we will do that on certain issues as they come up, even though, but the real big stuff, it's best to wait for the master plan process to go through.
I got one follow-up question. How long is it going to get to take an existing conditions plan of what we got already that Beta's going to do? How long is that going to take?
Maybe Beta.
Please
I mean,
address,
don't you think we should have what the existing conditions are?
please address
before
all questions
we
through the
move
chair.
into anything else?
Please.
It's about 6 months for us to do the inventory and complete that process.
Okay.
Yeah, and once, there will be, during that time, there's going to be public input. There'll be public hearing, there'll be surveys, there'll be a variety of different things going on. And once we have enough information together that the existing conditions are updated, we have the public input, where we'll start talking about what the goals of the town should be. So you're talking, you know, it's going to be a lot of work, essentially, but like I said, last time we did it in-house, and it took 1.5 years to get to the point where we were comfortable with it. Now we have some professional, you know, consultants that have done a lot of this in the past, and I think that they can do a much more efficient job than my department was able to pull off last time around. So. So we'll see how it goes, but if there are specific, and there's specific zoning changes or other policies throughout the town that people are suggesting go forward, this will not put a total stop on all of those things happening. But the big things, you know, if somebody came to me and said, well, we want this, this, and this, I said, well, maybe I can give you that one, but I mean, I can't, there's no way I would feel comfortable with some of these things until, but of course I run it by my boss anyway, and he would make a decision on those things. But yeah, so you're going to see some little changes like impervious coverage coming up and some things without going through the master plan process. So,
Does anyone have any further questions for Brian? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious as far as the engagement with the community, and if you could speak to that a little bit more on the process to have visioning sessions, to have charrette sessions with the public to collect that feedback.
all right. What we will be doing as you are starting to have your meetings is we'll be meeting, the town will be meeting with our consultants about setting up an actual process on public input. Essentially, it will be very similar to what the open space recreation plan process was.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of opportunities for public input and you know, several public hearings and meetings with special interest groups. There were a lot of input, a lot of possibilities. So there will be probably a month from now a discussion of this is what we're proposing, and it'll hopefully be up on the board. Everybody will be able to see it, and we'll get your input on whether you know the group, this committee is happy with that,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time it'll be a discussion on what the committee members' involvement in that process will be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're going to be doing, each subcommittee is going to have its own public process.
Right.
Not that it'll be a full public process, but combined, you'll have a lot of input, a lot of possibility for public input on every issue.
So I think to help answer your question, Eric, is we are fortunate to have what is at the moment a well-established process through the open space and recreation plan. That's actually coming to a finale. I believe that actually came to a finale last night. Was it not officially done, or?
the document public just today, actually.
Just today. So we actually have somewhat of a guide to follow, and what's nice is we actually have some methodology. We actually have some cool graphics that we're hopefully gonna, facsimile from the Open Space and Recreation. They put together some really cool videos, as well as some really in-depth public input processes. So our goal is to kind of emulate that, and in fact, what's nice about that portion coming to an end is that is also going to be incorporated into the master plan as part of the open space and recreation portion of the master plan. So we've got something to go off of.
Through the chair to
Yes.
the group here. So to add on to that, or to that effect, will there be a master schedule established which outlines the goals in not only the final deliverable, but the milestones that we're trying to hit related to the deliverables or expected progress made by each subcommittee, the committee overall, how the public engagement forums and feedback, fold into that, sort of like a very detailed Gantt chart schedule that outlines, or is it intended to be more fluid than that?
Do you think Jeff might be better to?
Well, I'm just going to mention that we will have a timeline, a project timeline with all the goals, all along the way. So yes, and I started working on one for this long before we had Beta involved. I just thought we'd be able to do this in-house again before I realized how crazy I was thinking it. So I think that there definitely will be, and it probably will be at the same time we present the public process. For your input, we'll probably be presenting a timeline also. If Jeff, you want to say anything else?
I don't have much else to say. Jill and I have already talked about this. We already have kind of a draft between us. We haven't really shared it with anyone yet, but we'll be working, with Brian and you to formalize that.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Any other questions? Hold on one second. Meg, did you have a question?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
Through the chair. Just a general thought. We put 18 to 22 months into this document. I think the last one was done in 2013.
Correct.
What happens to it once it's done?
That's a great question.
Goes on the website.
It's a huge document. It's not easy reading.
No, it's not.
I mean,
it's
is it a
fun.
reference?
It's funny you bring that up, Rick, because it's one of the discussions I've actually had with the planning department. It's the best word I put it was palatable. It wasn't exactly something that the general public could just look at and say, oh yeah, that's a great plan, that's a great objective right there, without really kind of looking at it in an almost lawyerese perspective. It's written a lot out like teachers' objectives. It's written out with specific goals and objectives, but no real, I guess the best way to look at it is an understanding is what exactly does that goal mean. So, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
And then my follow-up to that would be, and then what happens to it, like, once you review it,
In other words, what's the implementation?
Yeah, how do you make sure you're on track with what it is?
That's a good question. Brian, you want to follow up on the implementation portion of that?
I'll be happy to. Just to acknowledge the goals and policies section and the implementation plan together. If you read that, you'd be reading enough. Okay, because all of the other sections really relate to those sections, and the core of it. I mean, goals and policies kind of, it's the big picture thing and everything, and it'll talk a little bit about each of the different elements, but the implementation plan is the goals that are established, and the implementation itself, the objectives, the activities that are supposed to be implemented, and every year or two, the town administrator has asked me to give an update on how we're doing implementation of the plan. I gave one about 2 years ago, the last one I gave. And so we try to keep track of how well we're doing by all, have we met this goal? No, we need to still work on this, this, and this. Have we met the goal? Yes, we have, by 20 different things that we've done to accomplish those issues. So that is a process. You're right there, having a plan sit on the shelf and not do nothing with it is, I think all planners have seen that happen enough times, but they're actually implementation process is very important. The town can establish and implement a master plan implementation committee if it's concerned that things aren't going to be done, but it's up to you to decide what you want, what in the end you want to do with this. So.
I think it might be useful to get a report on the accomplishments since the 2013 plan was done, especially since you've been keeping track already, just to give some optimism to the committee.
Yes.
Through the chair. We have essentially a 20-some-odd page spreadsheet of all the goals, objections, and proposed activities. The last time it was updated was 2 years ago. The staff usually does about an annual update on it, so we provided that to Bader and Barrett, so they know where we are. We'll be writing an email out to staff again, asking for updates on it, and once we get those updates in a month or two, we will be presenting all of that to this committee on exactly where we're at with everything. Maybe Amy can put the last update on okay, all right, so it's already on the web if you want to take a look at it.
Yep.
Okay, so but we need to update it, but there's a lot of work that has been already done, and it's actually very time consuming going through each objective and saying, okay, that relates to this department, that department, this committee, all these different things, and actually writing out the lines of the things that have been done. And that's why we don't do it every week. It's a good long process to get that updated. But that's part of what we'll be doing with staffing this committee.
Gino, anything else? Okay, it's just a quick note, Joe, before I move on. The Town of Franklin's website is back up and running. For anyone who was looking for specific information in regards to the existing 1997 and 2013 in the recent 2020 master plan update, you could actually go to departments, planning and community development, and on the left, there's a link that will take you directly to the master plan. The one thing that I hope I had made clear kind of during the email discussions between March and today was that there's going to be a lot of homework in regards to the particular elements and what make them up. So when everyone is more or less assigned to a subcommittee, it's going to be pretty much everyone's charge to take the existing documents and to take the expectations that are laid out in the state law in regards to what we have to meet as far as the master plan is concerned, and kind of bring ourselves up to par as to what that information is. It's not really in our best interest to spend large portions of these meetings discussing a lot of content that was in the past, when we in fact can actually go back and kind of read it on our own. Because that would take up a significant amount of our time that we really can't spend. But what I would like to charge everyone to do once the subcommittees are established is to go back and look at the different elements that make up the former master plan. If you go to the town's website at the bottom of the page of the master plan, you'll actually see the elements that make up that master plan, and you can click on each individual master plan element and get details. There's maps, zoning maps, the historical community maps from 1942 to 46, etc. Oops. And there are clickable elements that will take you to the most recent 2013 document and highlight and kind of give you some understanding as to what we are trying to accomplish in regards to the particular elements. So, just 1 second, Joe. In regards to the goals, land use, natural open space, circulation, etc., what our ultimate charge is working with Beta and Barrett, is to take our current elements, kind of go through the existing elements, take out what's been accomplished, and then take out anything that hasn't worked, kind of cherry pick out the parts, and then put in parts that we think, based on public input, what would be best for the next 10 years. Because there are going to be portions of all of these elements that we look back on and say to ourselves, wow, well, that just didn't work, or it just wasn't a feasible goal for this past 10 years. It has no need going on for the next 10 years, so just take it out and we'll fill it in with something new. But that is a very lengthy process that's ultimately going to be accomplished at the subcommittee level. I'm sorry, Joe?
Well, you've touched on some of the stuff.
Yep.
Going back on what Bruce was talking about, how deep will Beta be going into existing conditions? And what I say by that is, I mean, my expertise is in housing, zoning. What, will he be bringing a report telling us exactly what's not built, has been built? Like, there is so many acreage of industrial land, there's so much residential, there's commercial, there's C1, there's C2. What is left available to be built? And housing, I read the 13 affordable housing, and we're at 13, we're like at 8.4, 8.9, something like that.
Yeah.
And over the years where I've been involved in the community, I've always asked, what's the exact number? Nobody has an exact number. Will that be being brought forward? We hear about projects that have been permitted but never built, and you gotta add that into the figure, but that doesn't help the community because they're sitting out there stagnant. Are we gonna get a good report of what actually what's built and what can be built?
That's a really good question. Joe, to Jeff, just a quick question. Based on your experiences with other communities that you've worked with the master plan, to what degree do you provide that type of information or data?
Well, we can provide whatever information's available, right? So that's what we're going to work with you on, and the town staff and departments of getting that information. So we can only work with what the data, the data we have. You have an excellent GIS department, planning department, that information, but just generally standard type of information. We for each chapter, with housing, land use, we're going to have base maps that show, existing conditions. We do recognize, proposals, but, proposals are proposals. They're not concrete generally. But we do, we are looking out, 10 years when we're looking at, developing actions, strategies, and goals, for those. But the existing conditions it's a point in time. So after we do that, and it's 6 months, it's hard for us to update that at that point. When it's set, it's pretty much set. So it's quite frankly, the existing conditions inventory is most of the work for us in terms of just how the workflow and budget goes. So once that's done, then we like to move on to addressing those strategies and making those improvements based on that data.
To the chair? Can I
Yes.
comment? So I guess my question is, that's your job to do that. Our job is to see what the community needs. So after you do all your adding and subtracting, I just want to see a number in the bottom that says, we only got 13 acres of industrial land left to build. Then we know as a board that maybe we should work on that and go forward to some possible rezoning. I just want the simple figure. This is all we have left. Residential, this is all we have left. Affordable housing, we're at 10.6. I want to know those numbers so that we can, as a board, put our minds together and say, okay, we have to improve this. Maybe we don't need commercial 2 anymore. Maybe we need more business downtown. So we know where our goals are, because right now it's kind of all up in the air. No one has exact figures. Is that something you'll be providing?
Well, we'll tell you exactly where you stand, existing, with the existing conditions and with regards to zoning.
And as far as like residential components with, there's some products that have all been permitted, but they're out there and never built. That doesn't help the community today for housing. Some of those developers will leave those stagnant for 5, 10 years. I want to know if that's stagnant, we need to work on something else and get it built. And not use that as a figure to say we're satisfied, because it's not really satisfying to the community. It just says the numbers are there, but doesn't allow us to build housing. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Through the chair, just
Yes.
to add on to, you make a good point, Joe. how current will the demographic data be that we have access to help us inform some decision-making, to add to that database and maybe start to continue to validate what we saw were trends, maybe that were used as a part of the development of the housing production plan, for instance, right? So I guess I would just ask if having, like, what's the most recent demographic, data that we would have available as a part of this process? Thanks.
Speak up, don't be shy.
Right, through the chair. The most up-to-date data that we have overall, of course, is the 2020 census data, okay? Which is taking forever to get all of the information this time around. In addition, the school department will do assessments on the children in each grade, and will, to figure out their facility needs and their needs for teachers and things. So there's a lot of data out there, and the data is really will be collected based on essentially the elements. What are we, as far as land use? Yes, we have. The planning department's done assessment, for instance, a few years ago on parcels 5 acres or more that are undeveloped in town. So we go, we get them all, and then we look at them. Are they landlocked? Are they, do they have full of wetlands or whatever? So we really have that information. And, and Beta and Barrett will be doing things of that nature going forward. As far as housing, affordable housing, the state gives us numbers on what we have, and they compare, and they say a certain amount of housing units that we have in town today, we need at least 10% to be, well, that's their numbers, and we provide them with our information as accurately as possible. The building commissioner has information on how many housing units are permitted each year. And once they're actually built, is that other number that we have. So we know actually how many housing units we actually should have, but we don't know for sure until we actually have a census every 10 years. Exactly how close our numbers are usually very close, but not necessarily perfect. So we'll use the best available data we have for as many different reasons as we can pull together.
So to the chair, real quick. So that's something you will supply to the board in a sheet like this that would, or is it all up to us to do our own homework and research all that? Or are you gonna just supply us with a booklet that we can look at and go, okay, industrial, commercial, residential 1, 2, and it's gonna come down with what's we can work with as a board?
All of the data I don't think anybody's expecting everybody to sit in front of a computer for their lives in between meetings and say, okay, I gotta come up with this assessment of available land or whatever the case may be. The consultants and the planning department will provide you as much input, as much data as we possibly can. If you need information to make a decision, then there will be people available to help you come up with that data. So what its specific it will depend on each of the subcommittee, and the chair will be like saying to us that each of the subcommittee chairs will hopefully communicate opposed to every individual person. That's the other thing we need to talk about as far as actual process. But if a person is asking for information, hopefully if it's available, we'll be able to locate it and figure out what it is and do the assessments that are necessary. And our GIS department is excellent, and they can, as I said, an undeveloped 5 acres or more, residential, it's broken into the different zoning districts. We also have data layers with 5 acres or more with residential homes on them, so they could maybe be subdivided. So just going through all these different rows, we can actually figure out approximately the build-out with our existing zoning bylaws in place. So, but it's a lot of work, but that is all things that can be done. I don't expect that Beta will be doing everything, but so our department and our GS department will be doing some of the work alongside.
Anyone else have any last questions, Eric?
Quick question.
No, hold on one second, Bruce, Eric.
Through the chair, would there be the capability to change some of those assumptions to the data analysis on densities in order to assess different outcomes from the build-out?
As I said, it's a lot of work.
Right.
If you need information and we get the base data in front of you, and we assume that a certain amount of units can be developed and on a certain parcel, for instance, by changing the dimensional requirements of the lots, we might be able to come up with, we could come up with a different estimate of housing units, but that is a lot of work to do. So I've played with that on General Residential 5 fairly recently. On if we change the regulation, the dimensional regulations and what can happen in certain areas. It's a useful tool, obviously. Whether the land use and zoning subcommittee actually gets into that much detail is up to what they want to do. And we will work with them as much as we can.
One of the things by protocol, and this is Brian mentioned to this earlier, this is to the committee as a whole, much of the process is going to be established at the subcommittee level. You're going to work through all the basic elements to which each subcommittee is going to be responsible for. Ultimately, the chair of each individual subcommittee will be reporting back to the planning department directly, and they will also be making any inquiries or anything specific to that regards directly through the planning department. In one of the discussions that came up with Brian and Amy the other day is the use of Beta and Barrett in regards to collecting data and getting feedback and everything else. Do you want to talk a little bit about your contract with the town so that the committee is at least clear as to what your charge is and what the ultimate contract and responsibilities of Beta and Barrett, so that the committee completely understands? I do have a copy of the contract in front of me, but I would rather just have a summary.
Could I just through the chair,
Yes.
just mention one thing?
Yep.
What we can do is not provide the whole contract, if you
That's
will,
fine.
but we will provide the scope of work.
Yes.
And we'll put that up on the web so you understand what the consultants
That
are.
would be good.
Yes, I'll go, I'm not going to go into each individual task, but
That's fine.
just the
Just a
overview.
summary of-
Yeah, so there's basically a handful of tasks. The first one is mobilization, which is really tonight. Kickoff meeting, start to gather information, meet with you, town tour, so that's really the kickoff. Community engagement is largely run by the town and the committee, but we'll provide support for that and
So
assistance.
I don't mean to hold you there, but as far as that is concerned, each subcommittee would be charged with making their own efforts to have public outreach, get public input, and get feedback specific to the content of their subcommittees. Is that a
And that's,
statement?
and that's fine.
Okay.
But we won't be leading the charge on the outreach, be supporting. So if there's information, tables, maps,
Yep.
Give you suggestions, what may work better or not, what's posted on the website, those types of things we'll be doing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's public engagement. Inventory assessment, which we've been talking a lot here. It's the 7 elements, and really the 8th element is sustainability. So that's collecting all that information and data. most up to date. Like Brian said, 2020 U.S. Census data is the most recent, but there's all types of information available depending on the element. So each element, transportation circulation, of course, as traffic volumes, crash data, those types of things. Each element has their own type of data. So that gets summarized again in tables, graphics, and eventually a write-up for the report. Next task is, I think it's implementation. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, implementation program. So once that's, the inventory is developed, then it's a summary of that information, and then developing draft goals and policies and actions. So it's really for the town to prioritize those, right? So there's going to be a lot of actions, right? You can't do or afford to do everything that we're going to come up with.
Right.
Right, but it's up.
We have to prioritize.
We'll help you with that.
Yep.
And we're going to give you a sense. I think Brian said this is whose responsibility is it within the town? How much funding do you need? What's the time frame for those? Those types of categories in general. It gives you information how to prioritize things. I mentioned in addition to individual actions, there may be some overarching themes in the town, which we don't know yet. But each element has their own actions or goals, but there may be some overarching goals that apply to many of the elements at the same time. Maybe sustainability, for instance.
Right.
It'll touch a lot of those, not just one element. So that will help you try to recognize and identify those and when you're making your prioritization plan.
Perfect.
And then it's the report. So we do a draft report. Yeah, it's true. Like someone mentioned before, these reports can be burdensome. We try to make them more readable now.
Right.
More user friendly. So if people just want to read an executive summary with the implementation, that's really all you need to read. If you want to get into the nuts and bolts and know how many crashes were at Grove and Washington Street in 2020,
Right.
you can do that, but it's not necessary to where the plan, the plan's going. So,
Understood.
so that's pretty much it.
That's it in a
Yeah,
nutshell.
and in our contract we have the details of each of the element, but each of those are kind of different depending on what they are.
So just to add to that, the last thing you said is ultimately there's the report which we as a committee would be giving to the planning department in the form of a presentation. I didn't know if anyone knew this or not, but there is actually a copy of the former presentation that went from the 2013 Master Plan Committee to the Planning Board that I have a copy of, that I can get everybody a copy of, that interestingly highlights the goals of any specific element. Like, I'll give you one example. Housing. Goal 1 was to provide appropriate mix of housing alternatives that meets the needs of Franklin based on employment. Goal 2 was to support development of affordable housing opportunities for low, moderate, middle-income households. Refer to the Town of Franklin Affordable Housing Strategy Development Plan that came out in 2011. Goal number 3 was to assure large residential developments requiring special permits are concentrated where adequate utilities are available. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Goal 4 was to encourage, rezone, and required support housing appropriate for expected future demographics. Goal 5 was to encourage future housing developments to take advantage of public transportation resources such as GATRA and the MBTA. And the 6th goal, which is interesting because what we've done, or what we're hoping to do with the new set of subcommittees for this particular update committee, is the 6th goal, which was actually a similar goal for every particular element, was some level of sustainability. Like, for instance, goal 6 here states support sustainable development for renewable energy and recycling initiatives, low impact development, other green activities during all public and privately funded housing developments, referred to OSRP, objective 4.3, and subsequent actions. So what they did in the previous master plan, as well as the goals descriptions, was each final goal, or goal 6 of each one, was some form of sustainable item. Our hope is to take aspects of that sustainability and actually put it into its own subcommittee. And before I continue on, I don't want to take away from anyone's questions. Does anyone have any questions for Beta in regards to their responsibilities and contract? Kobe?
Just because it just came up.
Yep.
It's not to that, but just to be clear, if you haven't reviewed yet, under each of those goals is then a subset of specific actions and implementation plans.
Correct.
Right, so that's the broad, but then under one of them will be like 4 ways to get there and who's supposed to be carrying that through. That's how it's organized, yeah.
Correct, and from those specific bullet points, like for instance, it referenced an objective, 4.3. And that objective 4.3 is going to be within the housing section of the master plan. And like he had said, we can get into the big picture, which would be ultimately the implementation document, but you can go to specific goals and objectives that are laid out within the master plan if people so choose to get more in detail. Kobe, anything else?
No, I think that, the big takeaway is most of it's going to happen at the subcommittee level in terms of data requests and, so sort of filter your questions and requests through there, and they're going to do their best to get to as many of them as they can.
All right, any other members?
Question through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned about prioritization of the recommendations that might come out of this study and what the town could afford. Will we be putting together rough order of magnitude estimates during this process for what implementation strategies might be for these goals?
It's pretty general, the cost estimates we do. It's like low, medium, high, except if we know something, right? So if we know a project that's already been estimated or proposed in town, that's going to happen in some cases. We may have, cost estimates already done for that project or program. We'll know that. But in general, it's a planning level kind of, estimate.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay. Anyone else have any further questions?
About the land use and what's been used and not used. In my preparation to be on the master plan committee, I figured I should look up the previous master plan.
Absolutely.
And when I was doing that, and I was surfing through the town's website, there is a spreadsheet somewhere that shows the amount of land that's been used from, say, 2000 to 2010 to 2020.
Yeah.
There's a green and yellow sheet in there that has a lot of the, some of the information's already been, tabulated, so.
Okay.
Agreed. There is information out there, and it's probably more than what you're aware of, but it's just that pulling it all together, it was what we'll need to do, okay?
What I'm getting at, we're not starting from zero.
Oh,
Very
Lord,
true.
no.
Very true.
No. And that's a valid point for the membership. We are actually technically referred to as the Master Plan Update Committee.
Right.
So for the most part, what we're going to be doing is taking the existing 2013 document along with the 2020 update that was submitted, and taking that information, repurposing a lot of that information, because some of that information is still very much so relative, even though things have changed quite a bit in 10 years, and we can certainly expect that things are probably going to change even that much more significantly in the next 10 years. We at least have something to work off of. We have a benchmark. And our goal is to take that benchmark and kind of weed out what didn't work, put in some stuff that we hope will work, and work off of stuff that did work. And ultimately, it will come out to be our new objectives for the various content areas of the master plan, and then we'll formulate all that together and hopefully put it in a nice, neat little package, which brings me to one more thing before I move on to the subcommittees, is this. Lily, from our communications director, has proposed that we come up with some kind of a tagline and kind of a visional type of graphic that we can use. Now, this is kind of information that we're hoping, like, for instance, can we pull up the open space pictures and imagery? Do we have that on the website? If we don't, that's okay. Everyone can, I can always send it off in an email afterwards, just with some stuff. But ultimately, what we're hoping to do is to take the various elements, like for instance, land use, circulation, et cetera, which will ultimately become their own content areas, in which combined will make up the master plan. In each particular section will have its own set of objectives and its own summary, which the implementation plan will reference. But it will be their own separate sections, and we're hoping to, as I think Rick put it earlier, make things a little bit more palatable, and some for the public to kind of pick up and read and say, oh, okay, that's what this means. Not only is it easy to read, but it's something that's a little bit more attractive. And during the process, while we're engaging the public in this process, is to kind of add a tagline or some kind of nifty thing like Envision Franklin. I would like to get some input on the committee on whether you think this is ultimately a good idea, or if you just kind of want to stay with the generic charge, or if you think like, my mind's not working. You just had the recent Franklin for All.
Franklin for All,
Yeah.
yep.
So the Franklin for All was a successful public outreach program that had a really cool tagline. I think, Mel, can you speak to the work that went into making that Franklin for All? It's kind of tagline / imagery. That was actually done to the consultant, was it not? Was that
Yes.
much of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was done to the consultants. So I don't know how everyone feels about that. It's just something to think about. It's not something we have to. Want to pass them along?
I was gonna say, can you put this in the Google Drive so people can look at it?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So
Nobody can see it,
so-
because nobody can see it today, right? You guys.
Again, one of the things I want to stress about tonight's meeting is it's really just kind of an introductory meeting. Our hopes is to try to get as much of this information organized into our Google Drives, so everybody will have access to it, and everyone will be able to make contributions to it, as well as have access to the previous master plan and any documentation here as well, which is currently listed on the town website. Now, if
Vision problems. 97.3% of people have no idea this vision health ritual exists. Every person has over 105 million cells in their eyes. These cells collect light signals and send them to our brains, which gives us the ability to see. Sadly, as we age, the cells deteriorate, much like a car engine that starts to break down over time. In 2007, scientists from Harvard and Cambridge University worked together, and after years of research, discovered a no...
That's okay, Brian. That's okay. We need
vision.
We needed a little.
The first page.
Uh-huh.
They were telling us we need vision.
There we go. So
there you go.
There you go.
You need to make sure your eyes are okay.
Yeah.
Space and recreation.
He just wants to see the O.
Oh, you want to see the O?
Yeah, the O's fine.
We just have an O.
Just an O.
You're very proud of the
It is. It's really nice. So,
I wouldn't really call that a tagline, though.
no, it's not necessarily. But one of the thoughts was to take the different elements and kind of give them that little O shape, but with different symbology associated with each one. Like, for instance, you got Ben with the leaf because it's the open space, but maybe housing could have a cute little house or something like that.
I thought it was a bird, Ben trying to shoot a bird out of the tree.
Maybe, kill two birds with one stone, who knows? So, that's just something to think about as we progress through this whole thing, and as we start gearing towards putting documents together, is to giving them some kind of color and some kind of symbology. And
I'd like to get Erin's thoughts on that as a marketing and communications.
Erin?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that there are ways that you can make it more palatable to the broader community, but I think it's something that we'll have to, revisit.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we can always talk about
Yeah,
that at a later time.
absolutely.
All right. So anyways, that was just one thing that came up during discussion on a side note. With that being said, in lieu of time, let me move on to the agenda so I can talk about what's coming up next. So I've listed in the agenda all of the various links which will take you directly to the content areas of the master plan from the previous 2013 master plan, its goals, policies, land use, natural, cultural, historic resources, open space and recreation, circulation, housing, economic development, community services, facilities, and ultimately the implementation plan. Those you can visit on your own, take some time to kind of absorb them, do a little bit of homework on them, read up on them, find out what they are so that everyone's ready for when they've entered their subcommittees. So, with that being said, let me move on to line item number 5 about the committee charge. I actually read the committee charge earlier, so I don't really have to go through that again. But let me talk about the 5 subcommittees and ultimately how all this is going to get broken out. In regards to the subcommittees, I'm going to read the names of the subcommittees to everybody. We don't yet have fully established plans, goals, or charges for every specific subcommittee yet. These are going to be developed over the next couple of meetings. The next meeting that we have, we're going to sit down and we're going to go with the planning department, with Bader and Barrett, and kind of come up with which elements are specific to each subcommittee, so that each subcommittee ultimately can solidly establish what their charge is, and then each chair and each member of those subcommittees are going to ultimately work together to create their own policies, their own structure, their own public outreach, and their own schedules. Because one of the things that's required by each one of the 5 subcommittees is that each committee will be responsible for establishing their own schedules, their own level of public outreach in regards to the data that they need to collect for those content areas, and posting that information. Since every subcommittee, as part of the master plan committee, is still considered a public body, all meetings need to be posted 48 hours prior to those meetings, and the public needs to be aware that you're going to have these meetings, and it needs to be open up to the public. The ultimate goal, as part of data collection, as part of working with Bader and Barrett in the town on those specific content areas, is to really get as much public input on any one of these specific content areas so we can formulate the objectives necessary to make up the content. And then we'll move on from there. So with that being said, let me talk about what those 5 subcommittees are. All right, number 1, Land Use and Zoning Subcommittee, which is going to be made up of 6 members. There's Housing and Economic Development Subcommittee, which is going to be made up of 3 members. There's the Community Services, Facilities, and Circulation, which has 3 members. And then we've created a 5th subcommittee specific to sustainability. We have a Sustainability Subcommittee made up of 3 members, and then we have the 5th one, which is the Open Space and Recreation, Natural, Cultural, and Historic Resources, which will be made up of 4 members. Of that last committee, the Open Space and Recreation portion, which is, as you can see, is already well established. Those aspects of the Open Space and Recreation Plan are going to be incorporated into that last committee so that they can finish up with the Natural, Cultural, and Historic Resources. And with that being said, I will give you a list of members for each committee, as well as the specific chairs. And next week when we come back, in 2 weeks from now, when we come back for our next meeting on June 28th, we're going to talk about specific charges and goals, and we're going to make a plan for the process. But for now, if I can pull up my sheet. Does anyone have any questions?
Why don't you just email it to us? Why don't you just email us that sheet?
I can.
Okay.
Does that, everyone just prefer I do it that way?
Top secret email that we use in that.
Well, I just like to make it public information by talking about it.
Just a vote to approve.
Just so we need. Good question. Ryan, what do you think? Vote to approve the committees?
Next meeting, town attorney when he's here.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll do that. We'll take that up with Brian next meeting. Sound good? Cool. All right. So what I'll do then is I'll actually hold off making these official tonight, but I will speak the list as to who I have on each committee. Land Use and Zoning Subcommittee is made up of Chairperson Janelle Lang, Joe Halligan, Bruce Hunchard, Jennifer Williams, Gino Carlucci, and Erin Gallagher. The second committee, Housing and Economic Development, is going to be chaired by Kenneth Elmore, with Rick Power and Kobe Frangillo. The third committee, oops, I lost my place, is Community Services and Facilities and Circulation. The chair of that subcommittee would be Kobe Frangillo, with members Kenneth Elmore, Erin Gallagher, and Janelle Lang. Sustainability Subcommittee, 3 members. The chair of that one, Gino Carlucci, and Melanie Hamblin, and Eric Stutzler. Open Space Recreation, Natural Culture and Historic Resources. The chair of that subcommittee would be Megan Hagan, Glenn Jones, Rick Power, and Melanie Hamblin.
I don't know if you care, but community services, you said 3 members and you gave me 4.
I did?
I'll take it.
I think so, yeah.
Oh. Oh, I did. My apologies. That's a typo, my mistake. At least on the agenda, it's a typo. But as far as the committee is concerned, it's 4. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Sustainability is a new category.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that sustainability is a kind of a catch-all term, right? And
Correct.
And it covers a lot more than just environmental impact. It covers resiliency. Resiliency gets climate change. It gets natural, emergency preparedness. It covers health and well-being and occupant health. I want to just maybe better understand what that topic is intended to cover. Maybe that's part of next meeting, is to come up with a charge for what that
No,
category is.
that's
So
a fair.
I'm sorry for getting ahead of myself.
No,
Just
that's
'cause
a fair
it
question.
didn't exist before, so.
Amy, Brian, you want to give some insight as to the thought process behind separating out sustainability specifically, since it was actually originally part of one specific goal for each content area?
Yeah, thank you. Last time we did the master plan, we wanted to make sure that sustainability issues were addressed in each of the different areas. Over the last 10 years, there's been a lot more talk and a lot more programs and a lot more things out there. So we have sustainability. What does that actually mean? We're dealing with economics, we're dealing with environment, we're dealing with equity, the 3 E's essentially. But of course, climate change is going to be one of the big issues we're talking about. How do we deal with it? So I think that the committee can either decide that in the long run, that's committee can decide whether it should be actually a whole element or it should be part of the others. And I think that the committee can come up with the recommendations on that, because sustainability does, of course, relate to all of the other elements, one way or the other. So.
Fair enough. Anything else, Jen?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No? Wow. That's awesome. I hope everyone.
Did such a good job, Glenn.
Oh, stop! You're such a flatterer. 30 years. I can't believe you.
Bruce off some of those.
Kobe, you're relatively quiet.
Yeah, I'm just happy we're not on the same subcommittees.
Come on now.
Too funny. Come on, boys and girls. Too funny. All right. So with that being said, the next meeting is going to be June 28th at 6:30. I believe, Amy, we're hoping to have it up in the training room. I mean, not that this isn't a bad location, but I think through you to Franklin TV, do you think we'll be able to establish communications upstairs? Because we are in conflict with other committees on these nights. I know tonight, for instance, the Finance Committee actually got canceled, so we were able to purpose this location. Brian?
Correct, yeah. I believe most of the meetings of this full committee are scheduled for the third floor training room.
Okay.
The Franklin TV was going to try to do everything possible in the next 2 weeks so they could go live with those meetings. They didn't have that capability as of today, so they're hoping by 2 weeks from now they actually have it in place. We'll see how that works out, but either way, that's where the meeting will be.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions? Nobody? Well, I want to say just one quick closing comment before we finally close our first official meeting, is I am very happy and very proud to have all of you part of this team. I think it's going to be a fun time, for as fun as a master plan can get. This is going to be an enjoyable adventure over the next 18 to 20 months. Our ultimate goal is to come up with a viable, palatable document that the community can reference back to, the planning department can use as a guide towards the next 10 years and maybe even further, depending on how well some of our goals get established. And we ultimately need to put together a presentation to the planning board at the end, then ultimately present it to the town council, and that will become an official document and go into the coffers for the next 10 years. Thank you all so much for your patience with the technical difficulties tonight. I'm glad to see the town's website got back up and working. I would like to repeat that it is upon everyone's charge, based on the subcommittees that they're on, to please review the documentation that's under the original master plan, as well as the elements that are there to familiarize yourself. Megan, I know you're in Zoom land, and I know you've got your hands full, but did you have anything that, as Tom would say, out in Zoom land? Do you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make?
No, I think I'm pretty happy with where we sit for tonight and looking forward to coming back together on the 28th.
Perfect. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, with that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.